If you inherited a house in California that needs repairs and you're not even living in it, the biggest mistake you can make is thinking this is just a normal home sale. It's not. For most heirs, this shows up during one of the hardest times in life. You're already dealing with grief, paperwork, family decisions, and then the property itself starts creating pressure. Bills keep coming in, the house may be sitting vacant, and the longer it sits, the more likely it is that something expensive or complicated shows up. So, in this video, I want to give you a step-by-step guide to what heirs in California actually need to know before they decide whether to keep an inherited property, list it, or sell it as it is. My name's Adam. I'm with Quick Home Offers. My brother Josh and I have been buying houses across California since 2013, and we've completed over 300 transactions statewide. A big part of what we do is help people navigate inherited property situations, especially when the house needs work or the situation is complicated. One quick note before we get into it, this is general information, not legal advice. We are real estate buyers, not attorneys. So if you got legal questions, those belong on an attorney's desk, not ours. Now let's start with the first thing almost everybody gets wrong. Step 1, find out how title was held. Before you worry about repairs, buyers, price, the first question is, how was the property held? That one answer tells you who has the authority to sell, whether probate is required, and how long this whole process may take. If the property was held in a living trust, the trustee can usually sell without probate. That is generally the fastest path. If it was held in joint tenancy, title usually passes to the surviving co-owner once a certified death certificate is filed. If the property was held only in the deceased person's name with no trust and no joint tenancy, are usually looking at probate. And here's a trap that surprises a lot of people. Having a will does not avoid probate. A will tells the court who should inherit the property, but it does not transfer title by itself. So before you do anything else, figure out who actually has authority right now. The easiest way to do this is by pulling the deed through the county recorder, asking your attorney, or calling a title company. Most title companies can usually tell you pretty quickly what you're dealing with. That's step 1, because everything else is going to flow from there. Step 2, understand the cost of waiting. A lot of heirs tell themselves, we'll deal with it later once things calm down. The problem is, an inherited house in California doesn't just sit there quietly. It keeps costing money every month. You may have property taxes, insurance, utilities, basic maintenance, and if the property is vacant, well, the risk goes up. In many cases, the baseline carrying cost can easily run somewhere around several hundred to a few $1,000s per month. And over the course of a year, that can turn into a real hit to the estate. That's before you even factor in emergency repairs, deferred maintenance, getting worse, city code violations or issues or problems with unauthorized occupants, squatters. This doesn't mean you should rush into a bad decision. It just means waiting without a plan can get expensive fast. Step 3, if there's a reverse mortgage, treat that as urgent. This is one of the most important traps to catch early. If the property has a reverse mortgage, that loan does not disappear when the owner passes away. In many cases, heirs will receive a due and payable notice from the servicer, which starts a timeline to act. Depending on that loan, that can mean deciding whether to pay it off, sell the property, or turn it back to the lender. And the worst thing you can do in that situation is absolutely nothing. If there's a reverse mortgage, contact the servicer immediately, document that you're actively working toward a solution, and get clear on the deadlines. There are situations where extensions may be available, but you want to protect those options early, not after the clock is already run. Step 4, if the property is in a trust, understand what the trustee role actually means. A lot of people hear the word trustee and think it's just a family title. It's not. If you're the trustee, you are stepping into a fiduciary role. That means you are legally required to act in the best interest of all beneficiaries, not just yourself and not just the loudest person in the room. In practical terms, that means you need to keep records, accounts for assets, follow the trust instructions, and act impartially. If you are a beneficiary but not the trustee, you still have rights. You can ask to see the trust, understand what assets are involved, and push back if the trustee is neglecting the property or clearly acting in their own self-interest. This is one reason inherited property situations get complicated fast. It's not just about the house, it's about legal responsibility, family dynamics, and timing all happening at once. Step 5. Know what debts follow the property. Another thing heirs often misunderstand is debt. Not all debt is treated the same way. If there's a mortgage, delinquent property taxes, HOA liens, mechanic liens, or recorded judgment liens, those generally stay attached to the property and have to be dealt with. In many cases, those issues can be resolved through escrow at closing. It doesn't always mean you have to come out of pocket before the sale. Unsecured debt like credit cards, medical bills, and personal loans is different. Those are typically claims against the estate, not something the heir personally takes on just because they inherited the property. One of the smartest early moves you can make is to ask a title company for a preliminary title report. That takes a lot of the guesswork out of the process because it shows you what's actually recorded against the property. Step 6. If multiple heirs are involved, understand what can stall the sale. A lot of inherited property sales don't get stuck because of the condition of the house. They get stuck because their heirs can't agree. If the property is in a trust, the trustee often has the authority to move things forward, although beneficiaries can still go to court if the trustee is acting improperly. If the property is passed to multiple heirs as tenants in common, every owner may need to agree to a voluntary sale. In those situations, one person can block the transaction and create long delays. And most of the time, the real problem isn't even legal, it's emotional and logistical. People live in different states, they have different financial pressures, they have different opinions about what the property is worth, and about what should happen next. And that's why having real information early matters so much. It helps you move the conversation from opinion to decisions. Step 7. Here's a secret most heirs don't know. IAEA. If the estate is going through probate, here's one of the most important things to ask about early. IAEA authority. That stands for the Independent Administration of Estates Act, and in plain English, it can be one of the biggest timeline levers in a California probate. Without it, an executor may have to keep going back to court for approval on major actions, including the sale of real estate. That means hearings, scheduling delays, and a real risk of losing a buyer while the court process drags on. With full IAE authority, an executor can often sell the property without a separate court confirmation hearing, as long as the required notice is given and no one objects. That can save weeks or even months. It's not automatic, it has to be requested, and if real estate is involved, it's something worth asking a probate attorney about on day one. That's one of those hidden details that can make a major difference in how painful or how manageable this process becomes. Step 8. Understand the real cost of probate. Most people know probate is slow. What they often don't realize is how expensive it can be. In California, probate fees are calculated on the gross value of the estate, not the equity. So if the house is worth $600,000 but still has a mortgage on it, the fee calculation is still based on the full value. By the time you add attorney's fees, executor fees, court costs, publication costs, appraisal fees, and ongoing carrying costs, probate can take a serious bite out of what the heirs actually keep. That's why the question often shifts from what's the top price this house could sell for to what's the best net outcome after time, costs, delays, and repairs. That is where the real math is. Step 9. Don't overlook the tax side. There are 2 tax issues heirs should know about early. The first is stepped up basis. In many inherited property situations, the tax basis gets adjusted to the property's fair market value at the date of death. So, if the property is sold relatively soon after inheritance, there may be little or no capital gains tax on appreciation that happened during the prior owner's lifetime. The second is Proposition 19. If the heir does not move into the property as their primary residence within the required time frame, property taxes may be reassessed based on current market value. For a house that's been owned for decades, that can mean a major increase in annual taxes. Those 2 issues alone can affect whether it makes sense to hold the property, rent it, or sell it. And this is definitely an area where a CPA can help you. Now, let me give you a real world example, because this is where all these issues stop being theory and start becoming real life. We recently worked with a seller on the Central Coast here in California who inherited 2 triplexes. There were multiple heirs involved. They didn't agree on what to do. The seller wasn't local. She wasn't trying to manage everything from a distance. The properties had tenants in place. Some of them were hoarders, and 2 of the buildings had major foundation and structural issues. There was mold, plumbing problems, and electrical problems. The units were really not in livable condition anymore. So this wasn't just an inherited property. It was a legal issue, a logistics issue, a tenant issue, a repair issue, and a family issue all at the same time. What we did was work closely with her attorney from start to finish, help coordinate support for the tenants, connected them with social services, and took the operational burden off the seller so she didn't have to manage all of this herself. And that's the part people on the outside usually don't see. Sometimes the real value isn't just in buying the property, it's in helping a family move a very complicated situation forward when everything else feels stuck. And that story is exactly why inherited properties decisions should be made based on the real situation in front of you, not generic advice, because sometimes a traditional listing makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. Step 10, know when a cash sale makes sense and when it doesn't. If the house is in good condition, probate is done, the heirs are all aligned, and there's time to clean it up and market it properly, a traditional listing will often net you more. That is the truth. But a lot of inherited properties don't look like that. If the house needs major repairs, there's a reverse mortgage deadline, there are liens, the property is in probate, the heirs live out of state, then speed, certainty, and simplicity can matter a lot, more than chasing the highest possible retail price on paper. So the right question usually isn't what's the highest number, it's what option produces the best real world outcome after costs, delays, repairs, and risks. So if you inherited a house here in California, here's the framework. Start with title, then find out whether there's a reverse mortgage. Figure out whether the property is in a trust and what authority exists. Pull a title report to see what debts and liens are recorded. Calculate what the property is costing you every month. Understand whether multiple heirs can block the sale. If probate is involved, ask about IAEA right away. And make your decision based on net outcome, not just the headline number. That's the goal here. Clarity first. And if you understand those steps early, you can usually avoid the biggest mistakes heirs make. So if this sounds like you, click the link below. I will reach out to you personally, go over some options for you. We're happy to help you. And if it doesn't work with us, we're happy to open our resources up for you as well. Looking forward to speaking.